Robert Pickton was in hospital after being attacked at a maximum security prison in Quebec. Today, Correctional Services Canada confirmed that he has died of his injuries. The 76-year-old was found guilty of murdering 6 BC women, but bragged about killing nearly 50. Georgie Smythe is here in our Vancouver newsroom. So, Georgie, what more can you tell us about this? What more do we know?
Yeah, I mean, the reaction from the death of one of Canada's most notorious serial killers is what you'd expect really here in Vancouver, where many of his victims were taken to that pig farm in Port Coquitlam. BC's Premier David Eby said good riddance in a statement, adding that it's a difficult day for anyone who lost someone they loved because of his cruelty and heinous crimes. Pickton was charged with the murders of 26 women in 2007 and was convicted of the second-degree murder of 6 women who disappeared from Vancouver's downtown east side. BC's Minister for Public Safety, Mike Farnworth, spoke just a short time ago and reflected on that gap between the number of suspected victims and how many formed part of his conviction, underpinning that many families will not be getting any closure from the news of his death today.
It's going to bring back a lot of memories. It's going to bring back a lot of hurt. And it's still going to leave unanswered questions, particularly for the families of those victims who, whose remains were found but have either not been identified or, Pickton was never held to account for the crimes that he is alleged to have committed in those particular cases.
In total, the remains or DNA of 33 women were found on Pickton's farm, and Pickton had once bragged to an undercover police officer about killing up to 49 people. Sarah?
Georgie, you've been hearing reaction from some of the victims' families?
Yeah, and as Minister Farnworth touched on just a moment ago, it is a tough time for victims and an emotional time, many of which, they're still based in BC and reflecting on this news here today. My colleague Yvette Brand spoke with Tammy Lee Pappen, whose sister's Georgina's remains were found on Pickton's farm. She was one of the 6 women Pickton was convicted of murdering. We know that we are sorry what Pickton's death would have meant to Tammy's family.
Closure. It's closure for all my family, my sisters and my brothers. Then I've talked to my sisters, so we're happy. We're just happy. It's like a peaceful feeling went through me when I found out too. I'm content now, and now I can go on with my life and enjoy my life, because that's what my sister would want me to do.
I should mention as well that years on, there's still quite a lot of anger about some elements of the case, how it was handled, and also the ongoing preservation of some of the evidence that was seized during the investigation. And families of Pickton's victims have been advocating for the preservation of evidence and for women who did lose their lives to Pickton many years on after this court case had wrapped up. And just a few months ago, a vigil was actually held outside the farm. At that particular time, people were bringing attention to the fact that Pickton may have been coming up to eligibility for parole. And a relative of the victim told us at that time that she had hoped that Pickton would stay in prison until the day he died, which is, of course, what has happened today. Sarah?
Thanks, Georgie. Okay, now I want to welcome Lorelei Williams. Her cousin, Tanya Holyk, was one of Robert Pickton's victims. Lorelei is an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and she joins me now from Vancouver. Lorelei, thank you so much for making the time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's a hard day, I'm sure, or maybe not. I mean, tell me, when you heard that Robert Pickton had died, what went through your mind?
Oh man, a lot of emotions for sure. Happy, sad, because I miss my cousin. I felt like there was justice, guilty for feeling happy. But yeah, just all these emotions. But I feel like, happy. I'm very happy.
Yeah. And you've been talking to families of some of the other victims as well today. And what's that conversation like?
I have. I met up with a few of them, and we actually want to celebrate. We're going to meet tonight to celebrate this, actually. And, you know, one of the family members, Michelle Pinot, who I'm very close to, her daughter, Stephanie Lane, was murdered on the farm as well. She was hoping that Pickton wouldn't die on Stephanie's birthday, May 28th. But after that, she was like, you know, he can die now. And this is how we're feeling. This is how we've been feeling about it ever since we heard that he went into the hospital.
I think you're entitled to feel those feelings. Your cousin, Tanya, I want to talk Tanya Holyk, let's say her whole name. She was one of Pickton's victims. She was not one of the 6 findings of guilty. She was, her DNA, her clothing were found on the farm, but the charge related to her death, it never made its day in court. How does that sit with you now that Robert Pickton is gone?
It feels like we got some justice, at least for that, since her case was stayed. I feel like court should have went on longer and he should have been charged with my cousin's death. But this is some sort of justice. It's jailhouse justice. However, the timing is really strange because we were supposed to be in court at the end of the month. So that's very strange to me.
And I want to talk about that in just a moment. But before we move on from your cousin, I want you to talk to me about who was Tanya Holyk. Tell me about her.
She was my older cousin who I love. Beautiful, beautiful person, beautiful smile, very protective of all of us. There's a circle of us cousins, and she was the oldest. She was the oldest one, and she was very protective of me, and that's why I fight this fight. That's why I raise awareness, and I want to honor her at this time. It's very hard for me thinking of her.
I'm sure it is. I was thinking back to how long this has been. Are you all right?
Yeah, it's just hard thinking about her and what he did to her, and he got what he deserved, you know. And you know, it's strange, you know. He was murdered himself, and there was jailhouse justice.
I was thinking back to how long this has been such a major headline, particularly in the province of British Columbia. And I don't know how old you are, but you must have been pretty young when he was first arrested. And then it played out through court.
He was arrested when I was 22.
Yeah. And then
I was 16 when he went missing and 22 when he was caught.
At what point did you decide to become an advocate in this for your cousin and for others in your community who've gone missing and been murdered?
During the Wally Opal inquiry, it kind of just happened. I wanted to honor my cousin and get my missing aunt's picture out there somehow, because I have a missing aunt right now, and the advocacy work just came. It was almost like I was meant to do this. I didn't plan it. It just happened. And once it started, it just hasn't stopped.
I know you didn't go to court for Robert Pickton's trial. I understood that you thought that would be too difficult, and then that is certainly fair enough. You have been back to the Pickton farm, though, hey? Multiple times over the years? How come?
A couple of times. It took me a very long time to even go there. I never, ever, ever wanted to go there, but I came to a point in my life where I thought maybe I needed to go there for my own sanity. And, you know, it was the last place that my cousin was. So when I finally was able to go there, I think I've been there 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah, and it's such a different place now than it was back when the arrest and the investigation were taking place. Before I let you go, I need to ask you about multiple ongoing lawsuits related to Pickton's case, including a bid right now to stop the RCMP from destroying related evidence. The RCMP have said that it's all cataloged, it's there. If ever it were needed again, that they have access to it. I think you feel differently from that. How concerned are you about that evidence being destroyed?
Well, I think the timing of Pickton getting a broom through his head is very suspicious to me, especially because we're supposed to be in court at the end of the month. And I do recall the police saying with him, if he dies, then the evidence is gone as well. So right now, some of us families are fighting for that evidence not to be destroyed. So,
And how come,
you know,
Lorelei? How come you're fighting? I want you to be clear. Why is it you want that evidence not to be destroyed? Why is it important?
it's important for that evidence not to be destroyed because we know that there was others involved in this, and it wasn't just Pickton. That's why. And yeah, we were up for court at the end of the month, and Pickton was opposing this. And yes, he died, but I feel like he had something, like with him opposing it, he might have had something. I was hoping he would have had something that we could have worked with. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping he left something behind for us to see. I don't know. I really don't know, but
Yeah, answers that may be gone with his death. Well, Lorelei, it's been really, it's been great to talk to you, to catch up with you. I appreciate your time, especially on a day like today. Thank you so much.
mm-hmm.